Welcome to the Black Alaska Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Amana.
And I'm Elizabeth.
It's a great episode today. I am so excited because of the person that we had a conversation with, Miss Shirley Mae Springer Staten. 4 names.
She needs all of them.
Yeah. And what a wonderful leader and inspirer. I felt very much inspired. A lot of wisdom. Again, a lot of wisdom from Miss Shirley and a lot of fun. I mean, how could you talk with Miss Shirley and not have fun?
I don't know. It was amazing. I was having the pleasure of meeting her for the first time, and I was so glad she just immediately opened her arms and gave me a huge hug. And she's just a larger-than-life person that I feel so honored to have gotten to meet, for one, and then to get to ask her questions and interview her was amazing. And I don't know how lucky I am to have gotten to be in her presence for that long.
Oh, truly feel honored as well. And especially around this month as we celebrate Women's History Month. For women like her, who has accomplished so much in the global, and I'm not just talking about Alaska, global women's rights movement. It was such an honor to be with her and to share and to have a conversation with Miss Shirley.
Yeah, it really was. And as someone who has read a lot of women's history and American history, it was so wonderful getting to ask her some really burning questions of myself from somebody who has been through so much more, has seen so much more, has experienced so much in her life, and really taken away wisdom from all of her experiences, and is so generous with her words and with her time and with that wisdom to give back. Yeah. And so I was glad we got to record that, not just for us, but for posterity.
Yeah, indeed. Let's meet Miss Shirley.
There are these tiers of people who operate in certain spaces in our community. And I had a word for it this morning. And hierarchy. There's a hierarchy in our community of how people operate. And so I don't see myself in any of those. I just see myself getting up in the morning and saying, okay, now what can I do today? That's it. It is hard sometimes, but it's not like, okay,
I'm in charge of all this stuff. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You're touching a lot of lives without knowing. I know there's a lot of black men, young men.
That's true. I'm so excited. About it. I am.
And so just without you knowing, but you're actually touching lives. And maybe that's the most effective leader.
Yeah. I think getting excited about the possibility of moving into a project, the implementation of a project. I love possibilities. That's what Keys to Life is about. It's about key that opens the door to possibility.
Right.
That's why we named it Keys to Life, you know. And if you want to get me going, get me around a table and with ideas, I can get fired up. Because sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't, but just that whole synergy that happens between people. Like I was watching you guys on Saturday, and those little guys, they were in like this.
Yeah.
They were leaning into you.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going like, oh my God, look at that. And that kid, I said, so what else do we have on? We had a list of activities, and I asked, what else can we add here? And that kid said, we should do something working with seniors.
Yeah, right.
Who are you and where'd you come from?
Yeah.
I was like, wow, seniors like me? Actually, that's what I said.
Yeah, right.
like the way that they think, we think kids aren't thinking, but not one of them have their phones or looked at their phones. They gradually moved around the table, and it was like this. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. And so we have this podcast that Elizabeth and I facilitate, run, and we're really excited. It's called Black Alaska Health and Wellness Podcast.
Oh, yes, I heard about your project. Okay, when we finish, you tell me about your project with the Black Barbershop.
There you go. That's another piece.
Because the same thing is with the Black Beauty Shop, too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same concept.
And so we thought, how awesome it is to have you just have this conversation. In fact, this has been just a great conversation to start with. And so we're tag teaming this with Elizabeth. And then we thought, well, our conversation should center around, Black History Month, or Women's History Month. And I remember a lot of the conversations we've had about your role with women's rights globally. And more specific with the Beijing conference. And so, Elizabeth, how do you want to start? You got some questions? You want to get started?
Yeah, I think to begin, like the podcasts and things that I've listened to with you and when they introduce you, obviously you have an amazing resume, but I wanted to invite you to introduce yourself, how you would introduce yourself.
Okay, besides being Shirley Mae Springer Staten, and sometimes people kid me about using all of those names, but it's important because all of those are part of who I am. The Shirley was a part of my early childhood growing up, and actually my mother didn't call me. I was raised by my grandmother in Georgia. She didn't call me Shirley. She called me Shelley.
Oh.
Shirley Mae. And if she put the Mae onto it, that was really, I was in trouble or something. And as kids growing up in a segregated school in Georgia, I just tripped upon this. And even now, when I call my high school classmate, we all called each other by our whole names. And even now, as we're turning 80, we still call each other by our whole names. So if I pick up the phone and somebody said, "Is this Shirley Mae Springer?" I know they're from Georgia because we still call each other. And I wondered why we did that as kids. Aaron Springer, Annie Bell, Annie Joyce Blunt. We call each other to this day by our entire names that we were known when we were in that little school. It has some significance, but I don't know why. I'm going to call my classmate, Annie Bell. Her name is Annie Bell. I said, "Do you know that we still call each other by our..." We've been out of high school now 60, all turning 80 this year, and we still refer to each other by our entire name. And then Staten, of course, is my married name, so I kept the whole name. Each has a contribution to the history and my life experiences that contributes to who I am. And I have done some diversions over the years. Like when I first moved here, I think I was only called Shirley, and then I went to Shirley Mae. So when people say Shirley Mae, I can almost tell the time period that they met me because I changed, and now I go by either. Although when I write it, I say Shirley Mae because I like it.
That's great.
And how would you describe yourself?
Describe myself?
Like, what comes to you
when I think about me?
When you think about you in telling somebody about you, that you are the executive director of the Keys to Life nonprofit, and you do a lot of things, but even when we were talking before this got started of like, I don't see myself as a leader, and but like, I guess in some ways where I think in my personal experience, I just experience myself. I'm not seeing myself through somebody else's eyes. Mm-hmm. And I think if I was to describe myself, I'd say, well, I'm married and I have a cat and I really care about community and gathering people, and I'm curious and I read a lot of history and I'm kind of a nerd and I don't know. I mean, I guess it's in some ways self-deprecating, like you're not saying the whole thing, but I'm curious how you would describe yourself.
Well, interestingly enough, that's a word that I use for myself. If I have to describe myself, I would say I'm curious. Mm-hmm. And I have always been curious. Yeah. Even as a kid, I would ask questions. Mm-hmm. I always want to know, and now I put another phrase to that. I want to know what I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I don't know a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always investigating and interested. I'm really interested in people's stories. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really am interested in stories and how people came to be who they are. Mm-hmm.
Which is how we met.
Because I called you on the phone.
Yeah, and stories that, it was an event that you organized around storytelling.
At UAA.
Yeah.
That's right.
So stories, it's a big thing.
Stories that were and still is a part of my upbringing, because as kids in Georgia, kids had their place. Mm-hmm. And so we were not allowed to sit around adults. And they had the best stories. They had the best stories. My Aunt Pearline, who was my grandmother's sister, would come, and Aunt Pearline had the best stories, and we were not allowed to listen. So Mother and Aunt Pearline would be in the other room, so you go and get a jar and put it to the door. Like this, like that jar. Yeah. And then you could hear the stories. And
jaw drop.
A jaw drop. You could hear the stories. She had a compelling way of telling stories. Aunt Pearline had 17 kids. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. And Mother, I was raised by my grandmother, and she raised four of us. I'm the oldest. Me, my brother, my cousin, and I have another cousin named Walter that my grandmother raised. And so when we went to work in the fields, the tobacco fields, the cotton fields, especially the tobacco barn, because the women would be at the barn working in the tobacco. Mm. And Aunt Pearline had enough kids that if a man hired out the Yates, that would include us. Mm-hmm. And that would take care of everybody they needed. The women to work at the barn, mm-hmm. the men to be in the fields cropping the tobacco. And Aunt Pearline sometimes would tell a story when we were all there. She was magical. She was just magical. Plus, she kept my mother from giving me a whipping because I didn't like working. And Aunt Pearline would say, "Come over here, Shirley, work by me, so you won't get a whipping." Anyway, so they were. I came from a line of master storytellers, and I would describe myself as being curious. Mm-hmm. And that curiosity has carried me far. Mm-hmm. It really, really has, in terms of wanting to know more. Mm-hmm. And by wanting to know more, that has translated into creating more. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I love that. So in my research, I found an article that was written about reflecting on the 25 or the 30 years since the International Women's Conference in Beijing mm-hmm. that you attended. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to highlight from it, and then you'll see where I'm going with it as far as kind of another layer of you that I want to explore. Okay. So she says, and this article was written by Gloria Felt in September 8th of last year, 2025. And the article is titled 11 Words, But Are Human Rights Women's Rights Once and for All? in question. First Lady Hillary Clinton twice made a speech that was personally uplifting and politically grounding. The whole speech was powerful, but it was these 11 powerful words, women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights, that made headlines globally. Women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights once and for all. It was an incredibly bold statement on its face, and the fact that it was made by the First Lady of the United States gave it a singular force. These 11 words framed the agreements that came out of the conference and would ultimately be signed onto most all of the world's nations. Declaring that women have rights and that these rights are inseparable from any other human rights was a bold statement, radical even. It was also controversial in part because it flew in the face of Chinese human rights violations that Clinton fully intended to skewer with her words. The next morning I was in the room where Clinton delivered basically the same speech at the NGO conference. That was quite a different scene. Thousands of women and a few men, including my husband Alex, stood in the rain and mud at 5 a.m. waiting for a 9 a.m. door opening. We were so close together that we formed a colorful canopy of umbrellas outside the auditorium that would hold the few hundred of us fortunate enough to get in. Clinton was late arriving and the crowd was getting restless. So a woman named Shirley Mae Springer Staten from Anchorage, Alaska went onto the stage and sang a cappella. The song had the refrain, "Gonna keep on moving forward, never turning back, never turning back." Pretty soon the whole auditorium joined her and the room reverberated with the words that expressed our hopes for true equality.
There's another article somewhere out in the world that says "Waiting for Hillary" because it was a 2-hour wait for Hillary.
Goodness.
Because she was over at the NGO, the official, or the unofficial conference. And when she walked in, I turned to her and I said, "We've been waiting for you for 2 hours." And she said, "Oh." That's another thing. There's sometimes no filters.
Sure.
No filters.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh." And there's a picture of mine shaking her hand there, and she comes and then she starts. But it was a 2-hour, and because my job at that forum was to implement all of the entertainment that came to Beijing. And it was something like 110 workshops for the 10 days. And 22 to 25 were mine.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
It was massive. It was so massive.
Sounds massive.
It was so massive.
Yeah.
And so my boss said, as Hillary wasn't coming, she said, "Get out there," because it was under my umbrella event. And she says, "Get out there and do something." And I looked at her and I said, "This isn't in my job description." I know, because I wrote my own job description for that job. Her name was Irene Santiago, and she made a face at me, and I go, "Oh, okay." So out I go to sing until she arrived, and it was magic.
Yeah.
It was magic in terms of people were waiting and thirsty and wanting to hear what she had to say. And that statement just reverberated in the sea of women that was standing there. I heard it. By that time, I'm standing on the side and I'm watching, her interact with the. And it was it wasn't the smallest venue I had, but it was the largest of the, I think I had something like 15, 16 venues running throughout the entire 10 days with different activities.
Yeah. Wow. I think what struck me most about this, without any of that context that you were working there, she makes it sound like you just got up in the middle of everything and thought, well, I'm going to do something about this.
No. I had arrived in Wairau 6 weeks before setting up. And actually, I moved from here to New York to take the job.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I lobbied 2 years for the job. I knew that the conference was going to happen in Beijing because I had taken 37 women from Anchorage in 1985 to the NGO Women's Conference in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya.
Yeah. So I want to ask, what was your involvement? Like, why did you want to be involved?
Why did I want to do that?
Yeah.
Well, this was 85, and I had been doing theater kinds of things, and I had an inroad with the women's community here. I don't know if I'd done the Martin Luther King celebration. I don't know why I thought I could do that job, because did I have a BA degree? Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. I was working on my master's degree by that time, by 1995, yes. So I had my AA degree, I had my BA degree, and my friend Kim Marie was helping me to develop a plan to send to Irene. And so I drove to her house and we mapped out the world and how we would have women do performances from different parts of the world. And I sent Irene this outline. And I remember that Kim Marie and I worked on that. And then I drove to the post office and I was about to put the packet in the mail. And the thought that fleetingly rolled across my consciousness, who do you think you are, this cotton picker from Georgia, applying for such a prestigious job? And I was like this, and I pushed it in.
Good job.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so part of what I read or I know about the conference is, does the name Gertrude Mongella
Yeah.
ring familiar?
All those powerful leaders were there. Now I'm trying to think but the president of, what's the guy the place that the man is trying to take, Greenland was there. I mean, you name it. And not that I was on first name basis with them. I wasn't. Because my job was the entertainment. But at some point, they crossed my path.
So Gertrude Mongella, who was the Secretary General for that conference from Tanzania. And
that's right.
That's
right.
Going to school, we read about her, and so this was huge because what came out of that conference made a lot of differences, in my home country. It was the first kind of laws that were passed to recognize women's rights, that women could inherit, property from their parents.
Right.
That was in 1995. Sexual offenses against women, women's assault.
That was the biggest one. Yes.
So this was a significant, big conference, which has
rippling effect.
From the little girl from Georgia, right? Being about.
Oh my God, that's such a good question. I don't know why I thought I could do it. Really?
Yeah. So if you think about the impact of that conference on women's rights globally. And then, of course, just for me reflecting on the Secretary General of that conference, being from Tanzania, small country, but having large impact. Like, how do you think about sort of your role, in this global women's
impact?
Rights?
That was, 1995? That was, 30 years ago? Well, this is what I do know, that we are a composite of many experiences. And those experiences lead us to where we are now. So had I not had that experience, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. And we pull on our previous experience and incorporate them into what we are doing now. Do I think about it in terms of the massiveness, impact of that daily ritual in Wairo? No. Because in some ways, I think as a person of color, you have to keep starting over because people forget. They forget that you have this collection of experience. And I'm not out going, well, I did this, so that they remember. And so we collectively, as a society, we forget about those that have come before us and those shoulders we stand on. And unless you have a big bullhorn and out there, you just keep doing what you're doing. And then you're reminded, like you just reminded me just now, and I get to talk about that experience again. Now, will they say anything like that at my memorial? Probably not. Because it's a new generation, it's a new generation. And I know somewhere that lies in me is a need to continuously engage. And by engaging, impacting. Yeah, yeah, it was huge.
It was.
It was huge, but only me remember it. Yeah. I might call up Irene. You see, she's still alive. She was my boss. She was an amazing woman. And I worked with some amazing women.
Yeah.
But, I was not a New Yorker. And why Irene chose me, an unknown, to do the job, mostly because I lobbied her to death, and then stepped into that role. And it was challenging, but even with the challenge, back to the song, you just keep moving forward, which is a good anthem for women to remember even now, that in spite of all the challenges that we have, you keep moving forward. Now, if I had to credit that to anybody in my life, it would be my grandmother, who would get us up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be in the cotton fields by 5. Hated it. Just hated it. And she required that we pick 100 pounds of cotton. I did not pick my 100 pounds. And I talked about this a little bit on Sean.
Yeah.
But what I grasped from that is to keep moving forward. And that was embedded in me, just to keep moving forward in spite of the challenges, the criticism, whatever those things are that are penetrated at you, that you step over them and you keep moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time, just even in your own life. I mean, you've done a million things since then. I guess I'm curious, where you went after that and how you were sort of, absorbing those, were you on a high of, all right, I'm going to go back to Anchorage and we're going to save the world, or I don't know.
To say that the 10 days were intense, they were. But they were intense because the Chinese government on some level wanted to control everything. And so every single day was a challenge. I had a binder about this thick that stipulated all of the agreements that the Chinese said that we could do within this area. I carried it around with me every day. And sometime if I forgot it, I went back to my room. So a typical example, I had a Chinese young girl as an interpreter. So this Japanese woman came to me and said, the Chinese are now charging us for the tea house, which I'd already set up as my program, and they wouldn't let us in the space unless we paid. Well, they couldn't do that. So I go and I have my binder with, I don't remember her name now, and we go to this hotel, and the manager who had charged the Japanese for this, the use of this space. And I said to my interpreter, tell him he cannot charge them. He charged like $2,000. And she says, Shirley Mae says you can't charge it. And he says, yes. So I pulled my binder, go to the section where it says, it's in English and in Chinese, that you cannot charge anybody in this area for anything. And she says, and he reads, and he looks at me, and he says, well, I can't give them the money back because the bank is closed. And I said this like this, I'm not leaving until you give them their money back. The little Chinese girl says to him, and I stand there. And he goes and he gives me the money. And I go back over to the Japanese lady who's ready to do her tea ceremony. And I say, here's your money back. And it was every single day. It was putting out fires every single day. It was exhausting. It was exhausting. So I would wake up at 6, and then I would get to bed at 1 or 2, because I had programs running from 6 to 10 at night. And so there were these challenges. And so afterward, I did go to see the Beijing, the wall.
Yeah, the Great Wall of China.
I did that. And then I went to India and sat in an ashram.
Nice. That sounds like the perfect after.
and for 3 or 4 weeks. And then when I came home, it didn't have a rippling effect. Because again, we have these tiers in Anchorage. I was working on my master's degree in spiritual psychology, so I continued working on that. I started doing speaking engagements around moving out of the space of limitation for women and what is possible. And I did that for probably 5 years. It just evolved. But it wasn't, I'm going to come home and... No, there was a subtle levitation back into the community. And women who had gone, they were revved up. They were doing many activities in Alaska because... I had an international women's choir that came, and so those women continued to use music in a way. I mean, Jane and Vic, I can think of the women that were at the conference came back, and, they still were powerhouse women and doing important work in the community. But as far as my integration into many of those, no, that didn't happen. I went another track.
Yeah.
So reflecting back on sort of the women's rights, the excitement, the aspirations at the time, right? 1995, a lot of excitement, positive things. What do you think? Where are we right now?
Okay, and I want to reflect back for one little minute. When I was in New York working, I hired 3 young people to come and work with me. And I distinctively remember one of the young ladies, I'd taken her out for coffee. And we were sitting in the coffee shop across from the UN because our office was near. And I looked at the women outside and I said to her, and this was really very insightful for me, because even when I moved from here to New York to do the job, there was a room with about 2,000 applications from all over the world. I think maybe it was like 4,000. Don't put that number in, but it was either 2 or 4. It was massive.
Yeah.
And so my boss, Irene, when I took the job, we went in and she says, everybody here has applied to do something at the women's conference. Well, literally, I went through every single letter.
Oh my goodness.
If they had an email, Odetta was one of them, which is another story. And there were some women from these small little villages that wanted to do something. Oh my God. It was massive, you guys.
Yeah.
It was massive. I mean, I would go to work at 9 o'clock and wouldn't come home till 9 that night because I came moved to New York in April, and I had until August to get this organized. And I was reinventing it as I was going because there was no model.
Right.
And so I said to this young woman one day, we were out to coffee, and we were looking at women just walking on the street. And I said to her, they have no idea the work that we're doing will affect their lives. I do remember saying that to her. And interesting that you would come back 40 years later, because I would hear stories of women in India who would file a police report against a man that had been beating his wife based on her being in Beijing and coming back and being empowered as a lawyer to go up against the Indian bureaucracy in terms of women have their place. You know, I would hear trickles of all of these stories over the years. And was there a sense of pride that the teardrop of contributions that we did, because really in the massiveness of all of it, our contribution was a teardrop. But those teardrops collected to make a movement. And so I would hear and get information. And I go back to the UN for the post-conference gatherings. And again, and then I had this other wonderful woman named Rita that died, that worked with me while I was in China. We would talk often. So I had these ripple, conversations. Was it a sense of pride? I think it was pride, but just knowing that our contribution was contributing to a movement around the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was it. Now, what has changed? I think the intensity of women collectively coming together in movements is still as palatable. I like that word. Now, mind you, I grew up in the 60s. During the Civil Rights Movement. So I was a part of that era.
Right.
And then in 95, loosely a part of that era. Am I intricately involved with the movement now? Not physically. I'm not out there with my sign marching, but then that's not my thing to be out there, but everybody has theirs to do. I think the ability for women to galvanize humans in spaces to make a difference has not changed. That still is an element for resistance.
Yeah.
And that is good. Do I see things that have rolled back since the 60, yes, voting rights. Yeah.
Sure.
And does it feel like we're rolling back the time? No, I don't want to buy into that narrative. I want to buy in, now what can we do? Mm-hmm. What is it that each of us can do now to keep moving forward? Yeah, to keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. And matter of fact, I really have that conversation with people. At least I try to redirect it when people want to go to that place of, oh, it's just so bad. Oh, it's... Okay, now what?
Right.
What can we do now? That's the space in which I want to occupy.
Yeah.
And I want to occupy that space with what's possible instead of laboriously thinking about what's not working.
Right.
Right.
Because that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
It does.
It really does.
Yeah.
And if you're pulling that energy into what's not working, how can you reframe that and just take that teardrop of what's working and build on that? Yeah. I like that idea better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm very similar in that so probably about, 12 years ago now, I started a women's group through my church, and I checked to see if anybody else, it was kind of a small church, so I was like, is anybody else doing this? And nobody else is doing that. I said, well, I need it. I need to meet with women. And so I started a group, and I would just, a few of them I bullied into coming to it. I was like,
encouraged.
I gotta have a base, and you're gonna be part of that base. But it was interesting, some of the women that I would talk to, like, hey, I'm starting a women's group. And they'd be like, well, I don't really need a women's group. I don't. But I realized within just the fullness of the church, whatever that generic term, the Christian church, women's groups didn't have a great reputation. And so the tagline for my women's group was like, a women's group for women who don't like women's groups. Figure out.
I love it.
But then too, talking, and it became very, it was part of my journey kind of into more feminist kind of literature and women's spirituality and very not your typical evangelical Christian. And because I was curious and I was looking for something that I needed. And I just kind of decided to validate that what I needed is probably what somebody else needed. And if they didn't need it, they didn't have to join it, and that's fine. But revisiting kind of like learning about the consciousness raising groups like in the 60s and 70s and being like enlivened by how powerful, and I think my group kind of became that in a sense where we weren't talking necessarily about our relationships with God. We were kind of trying to dismantle, or not dismantle, but pick apart our relationship with religion or what we felt like we were expected to do and how that resonated or didn't resonate with us, and being able to admit that, to say like, I don't really resonate with all the sins that people say I'm supposed to be suffering from. I'm not out there lying and cheating and, whatever it is. But that what is trying to really pull that thread, but that I think really came alive in those previous women's movements, that I feel like we really were having to relearn, because I think I was the only one who was reading some of that stuff, and so I was leading it, so we were doing it. But where I guess my question in all of that is like, what do you feel like needs to be reinvigorated from past that into women's spaces now? Because I talk to women my age and younger who are like, I don't really need feminism. I don't really see myself as a feminist. And thank goodness for feminism, they can feel that way, I guess. You know, like you can see that both as, you know, they don't owe anybody anything for that. But at the same time, there's something I think that has been disregarded. And
dismissed.
And I don't have the same experience that you do. I've missed a lot in my own reading or things I don't know. And I would want to ask you, as somebody who's actually had a lot more experience in that.
Okay, first, I don't identify with me as a feminist.
Sure.
And women's movement gets really mad at me because I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I say I'm Shirley. I'm a black woman. I'm a mother. That's about as much as I can handle. That is and really feminists, it feels to me like they got to hold on to this thing. I don't feel like I need to hold on to it. And I think that has not been good, because then you're left out. Because you got to, you know, it's like, you got to be a Christian. If you're not a Christian, you got to be a feminist. You're not a feminist. You got to be a Muslim. Well, I don't know about Muslim. You know.
Right.
No, I am going to dabble in all of it because I'm interested. I'm interested. And is there a broader, higher power for me? Yeah, of course there is. But I don't feel like I gotta So that's a challenge that I've always had in this community, because I don't particularly align. I align with many parts of it because it feels good and it feels like the way that I want to be. But if I want to just go down this road, no, that's not me. Okay, so that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, I do hear, even from my nieces, but I think it's my fault because I haven't taken time to educate them about the path in which the shoulders they stand on. None of us have arrived where we are by ourselves. Someone, Fannie Lou Hamer, said, we are here because of something someone did before we came. And we should acknowledge it and honor it. Two things. When I went to Ghana, I took a group of kids to Ghana. That's another story. And then we went to the slave quarters. And then there is, in many of these castles, there's a door. And they often call them the door of no return. And I tell people this story because they say, well, I'm not African American because I've never been to Africa. And I go, okay, let's back up. Let's look at that history. Somebody in your lineage, based on the color of your skin, somebody in that lineage survived the slave dungeons. They survived the slave ship. They didn't get thrown over because they died. They survived the auction. They survived the enslavement. And because they survived, you are here. And so you must give homage to those who, the same thing in the women's movement. That the mere fact that I can go into a restaurant now and eat any place I want to is because somebody in Georgia went to a counter and said, I am not going to go to the back of the door and pick my food up. I'm going to sit at this counter, and was beaten, etc. And that body of energy has moved forth that you can go sit. So there is a gratitude level here that needs to be acknowledged in all of these movements. In all of, somebody did something before we came. So that's the first part. I think. And the second part is it call the names of those who have come before you so that we don't forget their words and their action. Mm-hmm. And because they open the door, you can see them opening the door. Mm-hmm. The mere fact you have the ability to do the things in our community, in our society now.
Right.
Because of what they did.
Yeah.
Now, are people trying to roll that back? Yeah, but you can keep calling their names and acknowledging their action. Mm-hmm. And that reverberates out.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, go back and ask that one question, because I want to make sure I get the pin of the question that you ask, because sometimes I'll go fly away someplace else. Because it was so important. I was listening intently.
I think what I was asking is, like, is there anything that we, as specifically women, I guess, in this younger generation, and be that millennial or whatever generation that is, that we have dismissed, that we don't, it's not many women who are reading history.
I know.
You know, that I'm reading about, what's her name? Dorothy Pittman Hughes. Mm-hmm. And how she really tackled childcare. Mm-hmm. And if she saw a problem, she went and just, took care of it and got involved. And childcare is a huge issue right now. And, I think we forget that these things have been done before, that there have actually been solutions to problems, and that the rollback to those solutions, the takeover of those solutions, in that we don't see them anymore, we're like back to square one. I think the bigger question is, as somebody with your experience who's seen a lot of those, the progress and the rollback, and the progress and the rollback, that we're in a space now where we're like, I don't know what to do. What should we do? And that somebody with your experience can say, don't dismiss this. Don't. And what would you...
You know what kept bubbling up as you were talking? Keep forming the small gatherings. Keep telling the stories. The stories are what connects us.
Yeah.
The stories connect us to our history and to ourselves.
Yeah.
When I tell you the story of, I'll go Fannie Lou because I love her, who in Mississippi said that we, not as women, we as people of color have a right to vote. There's some threads in that story that connects to you as a woman, because at some point, white women can vote. And so her story is your story.
Right.
So you keep telling the stories.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to keep us alive.
Yeah.
That really is.
Yeah.
Despite all of the
Gadgets.
All of the gadgets.
Yeah.
It's these small gatherings where we sit in spaces and connect with each other as human. Beyond ideology, beyond political, beyond religious.
Yeah.
Where do we connect with each other at that intersection of our human stories? That's the powerful thing. And in those stories, we remember those people who have come before us, but also be inspired to do one thing more. There's a song about one thing more. I think that's what it's my job to keep telling you the story. It's your job to collect the story and keep sharing the story. It's my job to keep talking about what I've done. It's your job to take a derivative of that and do the next thing.
Yeah.
There's a song, May I suggest this is the best part of my life, and it's what we hope that our generation would do one more than we have done.
We wanted to end with a question that we want to ask all of our
don't ask me the one about trust, because Sean asked me, said, what does trust mean to you? I go, I don't even use that word.
I know, right?
Like, really?
No, we decided on something very...
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We want to know what you're reading.
You want me to go down the litany? Because I'm inspired by the readings. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm currently reading, but I'm telling you what has inspired some other stuff. Let's see. I was reading The Garden and the Thief. Pass that one on. Then I started reading How to Be Free by Chakra Senghor. And you're going to hear more about him, because I am going to circle back with that one. And then he also wrote Righting My Wrongs. I'm going to tell you about Chakra, because I am circling back. Chakra spent 19 years incarcerated of his own doing. He spent 7 of those 19 in solitary confinement.
Wow.
The second book is about righting my wrongs, because in solitary confinement is where he found freedom. The first book, the book that I just finished reading, not just finished, was How to Be Free. And he talks about freedom not being in between a cell, but freedom of the mind. You know Chakra's coming here. That's our project.
All right.
It's going to be our project. I hate to tell long story. So we're doing Sunrise Camp for kids whose parents are incarcerated again this year, and so I'm doing it with a group in California, because everything this year is in partnership with somebody. So Camp Avery from California, they've been doing camps for kids incarcerated since 1999. Let's collaborate. So I'm sitting in a strategy meeting of how it's going to happen this year. And 4 young people like you are sitting there. And then in the middle of it, I said, stop. I'm reading the most incredible book. And they're like, wait a minute. And I said, I'm reading Chakra's book, Chakra Senghor, How to Be Free. And I said, oh my God, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. Because he's talking about freedom in a way that you allow yourself to soar. Yeah. And one of the young guys said, Miss Shirley? I said, yes, Natasha. You know I know Chakra. What? You know Chakra? And I said, tell Chakra I want him to come to Anchorage. She says, I'm texting him right now. And I want him to charge me. Don't charge me a lot, because I don't have a lot of money. And if he charged me too much, I have to go down to 4th Avenue and sell my body to pay him. So 2 weeks ago, Chakra emails me, hi, Miss Shirley.
Wow.
You guys, it's going to be so wonderful.
That sounds really cool.
It's going to be so wonderful. So I'm using the talk as to bring him here. So I'm those two. Then I'm reading Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Gaddare. And it's about the restaurant service industry. And a lot of it, I don't know, because I've never been to a 5-star, maybe I have, eating place. Have you been to one? A Michelin? Have you been to one? No. It's on my list. Yeah. It's on my list.
It's on mine too.
It's on my list. I want to go to a Michelin restaurant. Yeah. But what he talks about in the Michelin, in his philosophy, is how we treat one another. That's what the book is about. Yeah. So then that one, and I'm currently reading the most amazing book. It is so amazing. It's called Mattering, Mattering, by Jennifer Wallace. And I think she's Mac Wallace. And what it says, and I'm rethinking everything I do now, that we all need to know we matter. We all need to know we're valued, that we're heard, and that we're seen. And what we do I was writing about this in my journal this morning, because I think that's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. What we do in the world makes a difference. It is so wonderful. Then I have Viola Davis' book, Finding Me.
That was on my list.
That one's on your list?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went and got it that last week. I can't get out of Mattering right now because she's talking about, she did 6-year study of all of this encounters she had with people and the ways that we can show people that we matter, that they matter. And we all need it on some level. Right. And it's, simple. A card, a cup of coffee. I see you. You matter. That was one about Sean's interview. He was like right there.
Yeah, he was. He was so in the conversation.
He was like right there. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so that's what's in my...
Okay, thanks.
I finished 3 of them. Well, I'm doing...